He doesn't speak, not in the way you expect. He makes sounds, grunts, murmurs, echoes of words that never quite form. His eyes flicker, not with ignorance, but with something harder to define. Maybe memory, maybe fear, maybe the deep silence of a life spent being watched more than understood. His name is Timmy Whittaker. And if you've been on the internet in the last 3 years, you've probably seen him. Frozen in thumbnails, passed around in group chats, whispered about in corners of Reddit like a haunted relic from another world, labeled with titles too cruel to repeat and too viral to ignore. America's Most Inbred Son. But what if I told you that everything you think you know about Timmy, everything you've read, clicked, and half believed, is wrong? Not just exaggerated, not just twisted, but entirely, painfully, tragically wrong. Because Timmy Whittaker is not a punchline. He's not a medical case. He's not a meme. He's a man. And the truth of who he is, how he was born, and what he's survived is far darker than the internet ever guessed. This is not a story about inbreeding. It's a story about a woman no one protected, a crime no one punished, a child no one expected to survive, and a world that looked away until it was too late. If you think you've heard the worst already, you haven't. Not even close. To understand Timmy, you first have to understand the blood he was born into. The Whitaker family of Odd, West Virginia, hidden deep in the hollows of Appalachia, has lived in isolation for over a century. Not by law, not by exile, but by choice, geography, and a slow decay of generational boundaries. Their story begins, fittingly, with a pair of identical twin brothers, Henry and John Whitaker. In the late 1800s, they each had children, and then those children, genetically as close as siblings, married each other. What came next wasn't just one act of inbreeding, it was the foundation of a pattern, a loop that never uncoiled. Gracie Whittaker, born 2 generations later, married her own double first cousin, a man who shared both sets of grandparents with her. The family tree didn't branch. It folded inward, repeated names, recycled genes, roots tangled into knots. Gracie and her husband had 15 children. 15. Many of them were born with severe cognitive or physical impairments. They grew up without schools, without diagnoses, and often without speech. They lived in the same home they were born in, an aging structure buried in brush and memory, sitting on rotting furniture, surrounded by dogs, silence, and suspicion. This is the world Timmy inherited, and it's where the rumors took root. When Mark Leda first filmed the Whittakers for his YouTube channel, the world recoiled and gawked. People saw a family that barked, grunted, and stared. What they didn't see, what most still don't, is the reason. They called it the most inbred family in America. And yet, even here, even in this labyrinth of collapsed lineage, the story of Timmy Whittaker doesn't fit the myth. Because for all the twisted bloodlines in this family, his birth wasn't part of that pattern. His was something else entirely, something worse. Timmy Whittaker was not the child of siblings. He wasn't the product of cousin marriage. He wasn't born from love, or even from family. He was born from something much darker. His mother, Lorraine Whitaker, often called Lorraine by her family, was one of the 15 children of John and Gracie Whitaker, the infamous couple whose double first cousin marriage helped define the family's genetic spiral. Lorraine was born into that world, isolated, developmentally delayed, and nonverbal. She never married. She never dated. She rarely left the family home. And yet, sometime in the late 1970s, she became pregnant. According to family members and long-hidden whispers in the community, Lorraine was sexually assaulted by a man from outside the family. An outsider, a neighbor, or maybe a passing worker. No one knows his name, or if they do, they won't say it. There was no police report, no investigation, no justice, just silence. And from that silence, Timmy was born. Not from incest, from rape. He arrived in a house already too full. in a family already burdened by generations of hardship. But there was no institution, no safety net, no social worker coming to help. Only the Whittakers, his aunts, uncles, cousins, raising him like one of their own. Calling him cousin, even though he wasn't. Not exactly. The truth is, Timmy is Lorraine's only son. That makes him the nephew of Betty, Ray, and the others. But because of the family's tangled roots, their relationship is closer than those titles suggest. Betty once said they're double first cousins to Timmy, which is genetically impossible, unless the lines between aunt, sister, cousin, and mother no longer matter. And in this family, they often don't. Still, the lie the internet tells, that Timmy is the result of a brother-sister union, is just that, a lie. His blood may be half Whittaker, but the other half is a ghost, a man whose crime was never punished, a man who left no name, only damage. Timmy's trauma didn't come from too much family. It came from a world that never protected his mother and never stopped to ask how he came to be. Lorraine Whitaker never had a voice. Not in the way most people think of voice. Not in interviews, not in arguments, not in the documents that shape our histories. She never told her side of the story, because she couldn't. To this day, Lorraine remains almost entirely nonverbal. Her words, if they come at all, are fragments, barely audible, often indecipherable. But silence doesn't mean absence. Her life speaks in other ways. Born into a world with no school, no diagnosis, and no protections, Lorraine grew up on that same broken porch, surrounded by siblings who shared her fate. She was one of the middle children, neither the oldest nor the youngest, overlooked even within her own family. She never left odd West Virginia, never had a job, never learned to read or write. But her life changed forever when she was assaulted. Pregnancy didn't empower her. It didn't awaken a new chapter. It simply happened. And when Timmy came into the world, Lorraine wasn't handed the tools to be a mother. She didn't get prenatal care. She didn't get therapy. She didn't even get a say. The family closed ranks. They raised the boy as a cousin, shielding the truth from a public that would never understand, and a system that had long since failed them. Lorraine remained in the background, sitting in old photographs, wandering through blurry footage, always quiet, always there. She's not the face of the Whittaker story. She's not the one journalists chase or YouTubers highlight. But she should be, because Lorraine is not just a mother. She is a symbol of everything the system ignored. She is the broken thread in a family already frayed. The woman whose pain birthed a myth. The ghost behind the name Timmy Whittaker. And if anyone deserves to be remembered with dignity, it's her. Timmy grew up in a world without mirrors, not just the glass kind, but the kind that reflect who you are, the kind that tell you you're seen, understood, valued. Instead, he grew up being watched, not by a loving audience, but by a curious one. First, by locals, who whispered when they saw him walking down the road. Then by the world, when a camera was placed in front of his face, and his silence became content. In the early videos filmed by Soft White Underbelly, Timmy rarely speaks. He makes sounds, low, throaty, disjointed, but there are moments when he laughs, moments when he tries to say something. And in those glimpses, a fuller person emerges. Someone who's lived, not just existed. He's not as far removed as people think. Unlike many in his family, Timmy finished high school. He knows his way around town. He reacts when spoken to. He recognizes people. He understands far more than his reputation suggests. But none of that went viral. What did go viral was his stare, his gestures, his grunts, clips taken out of context, edited into jokes, shared across millions of screens. A human life turned into a reaction image. He became the face of rural inbreeding, even though he wasn't a product of it. The internet didn't care about the truth. It cared about the image. And so Timmy became a symbol of everything people fear, pity, and mock. He became easy to judge, easy to dismiss, and impossible to forget. But the boy behind those viral frames was never looking for attention. He was looking for peace. And maybe, without ever saying a word, he's been asking all along for something we forgot how to give: understanding. The internet needed an explanation. It needed something simple, shocking, and easy to repeat. So it invented one. In forums, reaction videos, and clickbait titles, Timmy was called America's Most Inbred Son, a product of incest. Proof, some said, that humanity was still capable of creating monsters. But it was never true. The real story of a disabled woman assaulted in silence is harder to hear and harder to sell. It doesn't fit neatly into a meme. It doesn't come with punchlines. So the internet ignored it. Instead, people connected dots that didn't belong together. They found a man in Kentucky, Timmy Whittaker, who had a completely different life, family, and history. They said that was Timmy's father. They built family trees from fragments and rumors, assigning names to faces they'd never met. But public records show something else. The man from Kentucky died in 2016 and was never part of the West Virginia Whittakers. He wasn't related. He wasn't involved. He just had the wrong name. As for the real Timmy's father, he doesn't appear in any public documents because he was never acknowledged, never named, and never brought to justice. Still, the internet's version of the story spread faster than the truth ever could. It became a modern myth, a case study for curiosity, disgust, and moral judgment, all wrapped in a YouTube algorithm. But myths, once they take hold, don't just replace truth, they erase it. Timmy Whittaker is not the son of incest. He's the son of a crime. And the more we repeat the lie, the more we bury the person beneath it. Because the myth is clean, the truth is not. And the truth is what matters most. Timmy Whittaker didn't ask for this. Not the attention, not the headlines, not the thousands of strangers dissecting his every movement through a screen. He was born into silence, raised in shadows. And then, without warning, his life became a spectacle. The world saw a man who couldn't speak and assumed he had nothing to say. But they never stopped to wonder how much pain might be hiding behind that quiet. How much history, how much truth. Timmy is not the face of inbreeding. He is the face of what happens when society fails, again and again, to protect the most vulnerable. His story isn't just about bloodlines. It's about systems that turned away, about justice that never came, about a boy born from violence, shaped by isolation, and thrust into the glare of digital fame without ever being asked. We've stared long enough. Maybe now it's time to listen. Because behind the viral videos and the cruel nicknames is a human being, flawed, yes, but worthy of understanding. And if we can't offer that, then maybe the problem was never his. It was always ours.